NCBM has such a rich history. It is such a beautiful history of not only coming from a place where we were not accepted, but now catapulting into a place where we have former mayors who are now in the United States Congress, who serve in the Obama administration, who've served as state senators, who've moved on to wonderfully high places, both on a national and an international level, and the lessons that we've been able to gather and to learn.
The first challenge is most of us represented small cities, and we knew in order to get money for our towns, we had to make some noise down here in the South. And the way to do that was to organize and to speak as one united voice.
I think it was in 1974. We started down here right in Santee.
And so officially, we were organized as a Southern Conference of Black Mayors, and we were incorporated in Santee, South Carolina in June of 1974.
And we gathered together and try to see what the best route we could take and start working to motivate the people, get the people involved. And I think from that point on, it's about, this is too broad for this part, eastern part of the county. Let's go with the whole nation. Any black mayor who want to be a part of it can learn of it.
One of the founders and one of the people who was very instrumental in the growth and the development of the NCBM was my father, V.T. Woodard. And he was very instrumental in starting the Southern Conference of Black Mayors. And out of the Southern Conference of Black Mayors, a combination of the Southern and the Northern, we have the National Conference of Black Mayors.
Well, I actually became a member the first day NCBMs began, because I had been approached by a young man named Jay Cooper, and Jay had been the president and probably the originator of the Southern Conference of the Conference of Southern Black Mayors. And he came to me and asked me if I would be willing to be the chairman of the National Conference of Black Mayors. And so, of course, I told him I'd be happy to do that. And so when the organization began, I was a member.
They started calling us a racial in a sense. The white black mayor, why not the white mayor? If you look after the whole picture, the white mayor have their hands in the cookie jar already. We haven't gotten in there yet. I mean, we can't do nothing unless we got involved with them doing the thing they do to get some of the goodies for the town and the cities for our race of people.
Well, I'll have to paint you a picture of a small town in Mississippi that had no fire protection for its citizens, had no trained police department, no city hall. Basic services were non-existent. And so the National Conference helped put me in contact with those federal agencies who could provide help, provided technical assistance to write applications. So over that period of time, we were able to secure the necessary fire equipment, build a fire station, build a city hall, train a police department, reevaluate the taxing structure of our property in the city, and so had our first city audit. And it was those workshops working with the National Conference that made that happen.
This exchange of ideas between mayors and best practices and learning from them is extremely helpful when you go back to your community, because you may have similar issues, similar things that you want to do in your community, and just talking about it. The other thing is talking to each other to learn to just get a feeling of comfort that you're not in this alone, that the issues that you face, there are issues in their communities that are similar to yours, and just to be able to communicate with each other is really very, very helpful. And that's a very important part of the U.S. Conference, with the National Conference of Black Mayors, that I believe.
During my years with the conference, I think probably the most significant thing would be how we worked with government, how we were able to tie mayors to the various resources available through government projects. We actually had some MOUs that we had with various governmental agencies, and we really did make an effort to make sure our members were trained in the way they should be in order to use the government, at least use the resources to our advantage.
I'm really proud of the way that our mayors come together. The way that the mayors galvanized around each other when we were faced with the difficulties of Katrina, I would say is probably one of my proudest moments of being affiliated with such fine men and women. To watch how the mayors who had very little still gave up what they had to make sure that the people of New Orleans and the people of Texas and the people that were on all the surrounding areas were okay, be it Biloxi, Mississippi, and so forth. We were there to take care of each other. I remember our mayors that were in the St. Louis area getting in a car because we had no communications with any of the mayors that were in Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama because all the communication lines were shut down. And they got in a car from their respective areas and they drove into those cities and they went from town to town with a map, making sure that our mayors were okay because we could not communicate with them. That is one of my proudest moments of being affiliated with this organization.
One of the stories that I think I will carry with me until the day I die is when the National Conference of Black Mayors met in New York City. David Dinkins was the mayor at the time. I came to New York even though I was really a very sick person. I had the flu and I had a headache that seemed to have come out of a monster movie. Mayor David Hume took care of me. He would come down to the room every few minutes. He'd call me on the phone. He brought soup to the room. He would sit with me when we got on the bus to go to the various places where we met. And then I found out after he nursed me for 4 days in New York City and I returned to Kansas City that Mayor Hume was dying of cancer. And a short time later, his daughter called me and said that her dad had died. Some of the mayors who are old-timers will remember David Hume. He was one of the founders of the National Conference of Black Mayors. And in fact, it's difficult for me to talk about it because I sometimes become a little emotional about what he did. And I always remember David Hume, who was the consummate mayor.
To come from a time when the National Conference of Black Mayors was only a chapter that started in the state of Mississippi with just a few people, to now having over 640 African American mayors throughout the United States of America that serve populations that are diverse. I think it just really speaks to who and what we are and what we've been able to develop. We have mayors that are leaders of communities that look very different from them, but it shows that we have the ability to lead regardless of what the situations may be or who the people are that whether they look like us or not. It's in our heart. It's in our heart to lead, and it's in our heart to do the right thing for the people in which we serve. And that's the legacy of NCBM. It's a legacy of public service and one that is continuing to the entire world community.
The organization has always been helpful. It, from the beginning, was developed to help mayors to make their communities, improve the quality of life in their communities. And the conference continues to do that, and it's grown globally now, and we are making great strides with what we are trying to do.
It has given legitimacy and credibility to black political aspirations in this country.